The legislature today is on the air from our flagship affiliate, the voice of the Northern Plains, 550 K-Fire, and affiliates Talk Radio AM 1100 The Flag Fargo and Talk Radio 1090 The Flag in the Bakken. We're broadcasting live from the historic Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar in downtown Bismarck, the National Cattlemen's Association Beef Innovator of the Year. You're about to find out what's happening in the North Dakota legislative session. Your host of the legislature today is Dale Wetzel, managing editor of Great Plains News and the Great Plains Examiner. If you have questions or comments or to watch the show, go to GreatPlainsNews.com. GreatPlainsNews.com. The legislature today is brought to you by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties, the Credit Union Association of the Dakota, the University of Mary, the North Dakota Corn, Soybean and Grain Growers Association, and the North Dakota Ethanol Council, the Northwest Landowners Association, Touchstone Energy Cooperative, North Dakota Rural Electric Cooperatives Association, and members Minn Kota Power and Great River Energy, the North Dakota chapter of Concerned Women for America, the Expressway Inn and Suites, where a good night's rest costs less, and the Peacock Alley. It's time to get started. Another hour of the legislature today is on the air.
So this is the Legislature Today radio program. We're coming to you from the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota. This hour is sponsored by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties, and we have some guests to speak to issues important to western North Dakota and oil and gas producing counties in particular. We're going to be speaking tonight to Representative Mike Schatz. He's a Republican from New England. He represents a district in southwestern North Dakota. We're going to be speaking to Mr. Jason Kirsten, who is the superintendent of the Bottineau Public Schools in north central North Dakota. It's kind of on the eastern edge of the Bakken oil-producing region. We're going to be talking to him about the impact on his school district of oil development. And we hope to be speaking later on to a reporter from a French newspaper who's bombing around in western North Dakota, looking at the process of hydraulic fracturing, which apparently is also going on in France. And this gentleman wants to have a first-hand look at how North Dakota does hydraulic fracturing. First of all, I thought we'd go through a few things, what happened in the legislature today. For the second time in 2 days, the North Dakota House defeated a proposal to make speeding tickets more expensive in North Dakota. Last Friday, a proposal to increase speeding fines was defeated when it did not get the required 48 votes to pass. It had a plurality of the votes that were cast, but it was Friday afternoon, and 11 people in the North Dakota House were absent, and so this bill did not get to the 48-vote majority that it needed to pass. Well, this bill was brought up again today, and again it was defeated. There were most folks were in attendance, but it did not get the 48 votes that it needed to pass, and so I think that we might be saying a sayonara to that issue this year. The North Dakota House has been traditionally the graveyard for proposals to raise speeding fines, and it was true to form today, even though the proposed increases in speeding fines would have still, according to proponents of the bill, would have still left North Dakota with its status as having the cheapest speeding tickets in the nation. We also had a couple of votes on constitutional amendments, one in the House, one in the Senate. The North Dakota Senate approved a constitutional amendment that would replace the Chancellor and the Board of Higher Education with a 3-member higher education commission that would be appointed by the governor. This amendment has gotten a wild ride in the North Dakota Senate. It has been defeated, then it was reconsidered, then it was defeated. Then there was an attempt to reconsider it. That attempt to reconsider it failed. Then there was another attempt to reconsider it, which succeeded. And then that led to today's vote in the Senate to approve this amendment and send it to the House. And we will see what the House does with it. It was originally introduced by the House Republican Majority Leader, Al Carlson. He's a Republican from Fargo. And his original vision was to have a single commissioner of higher education appointed by the governor who would have charge of North Dakota's university system, being able to hire and fire the presidents of the 11 schools in North Dakota's university system. Essentially, this person would have been a higher education czar. He would have replaced the Board of Higher Education. Instead, what we have now is kind of a three-headed chancellor. This proposed Higher Education Commission, these people would be appointed by the governor. They would be full-time. They would serve 4-year terms, and they would run North Dakota's higher education system. They would hire and fire the presidents of the schools. They would be much more involved in the administration of North Dakota's 11 public colleges than is the State Board of Higher Education, which is a part-time board which meets approximately once a month. We also had a proposal to extend tax breaks to oil producers who are producing natural gas in an attempt to try to get them to waste less of it. Right now, about a third of North Dakota's natural gas production is wasted. It's burned off at the wellhead and flared because there are no pipeline networks available presently to collect this gas and process it and make use of it. And what this bill does, and it has gotten final approval in the legislature now. It's on its way to the governor. It gives a 2-year tax exemption in cases where a natural gas source is either capped or if 75% of the gas production from a newly drilled oil and natural gas well is used for the generation of electricity, if it's compressed for manufacture into another substance such as anhydrous ammonia, or if it is used to power an electrical generator. And this, it is hoped by all concerned that this idea will lead to less wasting of natural gas, and that, again, is on its way to the governor. One of the winners in the tax cut derby that is the North Dakota legislature this year so far has been the state's charitable gambling industry. There was a bill approved today in the legislature that would reduce the tax burden on charitable gaming establishments by $3.4 million over 2 years. This will leave them with more revenue with which to do their nonprofit work in local communities. All right, I believe that's pretty much that's our summary of what happened in the legislature today. And now we're going to be speaking to folks who were gathered by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties to talk about oil and gas issues in western North Dakota. We have with us in person Representative Mike Schatz. He's a Republican from New England. He's a former teacher and coach in western North Dakota, and he's a former director of the North Dakota Republican Party. And Mr. Schatz, first of all, can you describe the area you represent? What is your district, what territory does your district include?
You bet. Well, Dale, thanks for having me on. And District 36 is part of Dunn and all of Stark outside of the city of District 37 in Dickinson, and then the northern or western part of Hettinger County and the western part of Morton County. Okay, are we better?
We are better.
All right, okay. Okay, so that's our district, and half of Dunn County, which is from Highway 200 south of there. So, we have a tremendous amount of oil activity going on, of course, in Dunn County and in Stark County. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot going on in Hettinger County yet or in Morton County. But so, there's a tremendous amount of activity, and, having been out in the oil patch myself, I have a little, experience with this because I did drive truck for about a year and a half. And so, I drove many of the roads right now that are tremendously busy. I did this back in 07, 06, and 08. And so, that it gives me a little different perspective about what goes on in the oil patch as maybe just someone who hadn't worked there.
What were you hauling?
I was doing water, production water, and of course you go to the well and or to the tanks and take that out and then take it to a disposal well was basically the job. I also did some fresh water for fracking, and so a little bit of the water carrying throughout the oil, region, and that, ranged from Dickinson all the way up to Keene and through Watford City. And I look at that every time I drive to Watford City now, I'm thinking, wow, am I glad I don't have to drive that road the way it is right now, because there's so much traffic on it.
Could you describe how is it right now?
Well, I think everybody should take a little trip, and they should drive up to Watford City and then go over to Newtown and then go to Stanley and Tioga, Williston, and then come back to Watford City. I think that's the most eye-opening trip that you could make. I recommend a four-wheel drive, however. I wouldn't take a little car if I were you, because there's a lot of big vehicles out there, and so you wanna be up there where you can see things a little bit better. But it really is a fascinating trip, and there's a lot of traffic on those roads. And I've always been an advocate for the 4-lane highway all the way from Belfield to the Canadian border to wherever I'm not sure exactly how heavy the traffic is on 85 all the way to Crosby, but I'm sure it's a great deal, and ultimately all the way to Bowman. I mean, this is a must. It's gonna, if it keeps coming the way it is, we're gonna have to have that 4-lane highway.
You mentioned you hauled production water. What's in production water?
Well, basically, Dale, it's salt water. When a well, when they pump the well, it has water and oil in it, and so you go through a separator. And I'm just going to use this as an example. You might get 3 parts oil and 1 part salt water, and the separator separates it, and then it goes into the production water tank, and then you go over with your truck, and then you unload. I think I had 180 barrels is what I would take out of their usual tank load, and then you would drive it to wherever the saltwater disposal well is. So that's what we did, and that's what if they don't have the pipeline set up for that, which many times they do not, production water is still have to be hauled by truck.
What was it like driving truck in those days?
Well, it was not nearly as there wasn't the traffic, but every time the weather gets like it is right now, where it freezes and thaws, or you have ice on the road, if you have fog and you have all of these people, I mean, these are dangerous situations. That's why you have to have a divided highway. I used to, when I was kind of a rookie driver, but, after you got more comfortable with it, you felt better. But, it's tough to go out there and drive those roads if you're not used to that kind of traffic.
And how much worse has it gotten since you were doing it?
Well, right now, like I say, there's a lot of traffic on these roads. One thing, I think they slow down a little bit because there is so much traffic. You're not seeing people going over the speed limit because, you just basically have to slow down because there is so many people. And I know one of the experiences I had was up to Tioga, and they had just, was that last year? Yeah, they had just put in a stoplight on Highway 200 where you could take a left-hand turn, and they could stop the traffic on 200, and then the trucks coming out of Tioga could take a left. Otherwise, you had to wait, and that one line was a half mile long, of tough traffic, trying to take a left-hand turn. And I know that it's not so much our DOT as it is federal regulations where we have a lot of have to do a study on this and a study on that, but something like that, which is so imperative to get it done right away, a stoplight. I don't understand the studying that would have to, environmental studies that would have to be done. But, that was just my observation. I'm sure somebody had a good reason why they did what they did, but, that's what I was seeing there.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Well, thank you, Dale. I tell you, I'm a New England boy, born and raised, and
New England, North Dakota.
Yep, New England, North Dakota. I use that sometimes when people say what state, and I always say New Hampshire. And then but that's a little joke. And hey, you're going to have a French guy on here. I always like to ask him, how are things on the Champs-Élysées? Have you ever been to France?
I have, yes.
Isn't that a great town? I mean, Paris? Did you go to Paris?
I've been on several locations. I have been to Paris, yes.
Isn't that an interesting place?
It's great if it wasn't for the Parisians.
See, I liked them. I thought they were hilarious. I was having fun there. I kept going back to the Eiffel Tower. It's like, is that for real? You can't take a picture of that. I don't know why. But anyway, so even though I haven't left North Dakota very often, every once in a while I do get to go someplace, and so that was a great trip for me.
So you did some coaching, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I did. I went to I graduated from New England High School, New England Public, and then I went to Minot State and played football for Kenny Becker and did some coaching there, and then came back. I spent 1 year in Ellendale. And then I came back to my hometown to farm and teach and coach. I farm with my dad, and we raise cattle, and so that's where we have been ever since. My wife, Patty, and I have raised 4 beautiful children who are now, of course, all adults, and I'd like to brag them up a little bit because my oldest daughter is a doctor down in Jamestown. My next son is up in Newtown, working in the oil patch. Amber, you may know her. She's a weekend anchor for KX. And my youngest son is Joshua, who is a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps and flying CH-53 Echo helicopters for the Marines.
How long has he been doing that?
He just got his wings, was that last summer? And then he's done his training on the CH-53 Echo this last year in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Luckily, he's got an assignment to go to Honolulu, to Hawaii. That's where he's going to be posted. And so he's coming home just in the next few days, and then he's going to drive down to San Diego, and he's going to have his vehicle shipped over to Honolulu. And so then he's going to go over there and be posted there. So we're looking forward to seeing him.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you, what do you think that the legislature has done right by Western North Dakota in making sure that the region has enough money to repair to handle the effects of oil development?
Well, Dale, I'm not exactly sure because 1358 is not out of, it's not done yet. I don't really know. I know what we worked on this summer and what we started off with Representative Scarpel started off with, which were great ideas, and I thought they covered much of the needs of Western North Dakota, but now exactly where it is right now, I'm not sure. Initially it did, I thought, had some plentiful amounts of money in there for what we needed out west, and hopefully it's going to be that way.
What's the money going to be used for when it is received?
Well, it's going to be used for a number of things, and I think the number one thing is going to be roads. We have to have the transportation, so that we can get, what I talked about earlier, the production water and that sort of thing in and out safely. Of course, that's just part of it. But water is going to be part of it. We, constantly are in need of water. I know that, like in New England, we do not have the ability to hook up to Southwest Water anymore because, the line is full. There's no more capacity for you to hook up a fresh line. So that's a bad situation. Of course, schools are an issue. There's always going to be school problems. And we did a little visiting up in Williston this summer when interim committee I was up on. They told us about how their school is growing so quickly. And I know that it's growing in Tioga and Stanley and that area. I was doing a little radio show up there this last year and, got to visit with those folks. Emergency services, of course, are oftentimes stretched to the limit. I admire those people a great deal. I talked to some of them who are serving on the ambulance and the fire department up there and that were in the school system. And, they were saying, that when they go out now, they make sure they take the jaws of life with them, because that is such an important thing if there's a car accident. It isn't like it was before. It's a lot of times a nasty accident, and they have to work on those types of things. So we need as much money as we can for those people because, it's very important, to not overtax the people who are volunteers right now. We need more and more money for them.
You mentioned that the accidents are more severe. Why do you think that is?
Well, of course, the volume of traffic is probably the reason for that, and then it's. I'm sure the frequencies have changed so much. Anytime you have traffic that's tenfold of what it used to be 20 years ago, you're going to have 10 times the accidents, I suppose. And they're just a lot of the same volunteers who are out there trying to service their area.
I mean, if you were in Minneapolis and facing this kind of truck traffic or this kind of traffic generally, would you think it was unusual? I mean, people complain all the time or talk all the time about the traffic in western North Dakota, and I'm just wondering how much of it is because folks aren't used to traffic out in western North Dakota, and so they think what in other places would be considered normal traffic is considered like horribly burdensome.
I agree with you on that when you do go to Minneapolis, you're in that rush hour situation. You're not really – I know I'm not used to it. I get used to it very quickly. You have to. But I think folks that are, living in the rural area, I don't know. I mean, it just does take some getting used to, because it wasn't that way before.
Do you think that folks – what do you think that is the general attitude of folks toward the oil development? Does it regard it as a good thing, as a bad thing? How do folks regard it?
Well, I think they look at it as a good thing. There's no question that what oil has done to help this state, I mean, it's just fantastic. The state as a whole has been – put on a par that we've never had before. Our state has never done this well. I'm kind of an old history teacher of North Dakota, and I try to think back when it ever got this good. I don't know. And that's fantastic. And when I worked out there, I was just we worked long, hard days. We worked 12-hour days, but you know what? I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. And I thought, well, this is a great industry, and I enjoyed learning about it too. And it's fueling our nation. It's changing our whole United States is being changed by North Dakota because now we're becoming more self-sufficient. North Dakotans could be so proud. I know that there's some inconveniences, and they know it too, but they also know that they're doing one heck of a big deal for the United States. And and there's a lot of benefits to it, and some of them are financial, and it's. We used to say the last one here, turn off the lights in these little towns, and that's not true anymore. Now there's activity, there's things to do, there's lots of things to do, and so that makes, I think, to me, it's more vibrant and more energetic, and I think people like it more.
What do you think the environmental effects have been? To what extent is that important?
Well, as far as one of the things I was impressed with when I worked out there was how careful the oil companies were not to make a mess. And we were always out there saying, well, you can't do that because, something bad might happen there. Now, I know there's going to be once in a while things happen, but to me, they've taken a tremendous amount of precautions to prevent it. And, I was always impressed with that part of it.
We've been speaking to Representative Mike Schatz. He's a Republican from New England. He represents a rural district in southwestern North Dakota. And this hour is brought to you, this hour of the legislature today is brought to you by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. And we will be back in a moment to speak with the superintendent of the Bottineau School District.
Join us on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central